Hey YouTubers, it's Charlie. This is going to be my Pixar Inside Out review. In case you guys haven't seen it, what I'm going to do is the first half of the video will be non-spoilery, and then the second half I'll do spoilers. So here we go. One of the things I love most about Pixar films is that they're not afraid to try new ideas, and this is one of the newest, weirdest ideas that they've had for a movie. Most of the voice cast you'll probably recognize. The main cast is really the 5 different emotions: joy, sadness, disgust, anger, and fear. Most of the trailers feature Amy Poehler. She's pretty much like the point girl in the movie, but the film is built around all 5 emotions. On one level, it's a lot like the Toy Story films in that it's about learning that it's okay for things to change as you grow up. But on a deeper level, this movie is a lot more about learning and development and how that changes as you grow up. So it's taking a much more internalized view of growing up. Thematically, if you are going to tie this to a franchise, though, I would tie it to Toy Story because Pete Docter, the director, also wrote Inside Out. He's the same guy that wrote all the Toy Story films. Or I should say that he wrote the original story that the Toy Story movies were based on. There's a difference between the story and the screenplay. It's a bunch of different things. But creatively, the Toy Story franchise and Inside Out flow from the same place. So if you like Toy Story, you'll like this, but it's much more cerebral in the sense that it focuses much more on the action inside your head than on the physical actions you take in the real world. So it's almost literally reflexive in a way that the Toy Story movies aren't. Like the toys in Toy Story think about their own existence as toys, which is kind of funny and ironic at the same time. The movie does try really hard to explain the feedback loop of, actions leading to emotions, leading to long-term memories, and those memories influencing future actions. And even though it's so heavy on emotions, I didn't find it too emotionally manipulative. This isn't Game of Thrones with memories. There has been a lot of talk about how the film portrays depression, because that's a big arc in the film. The proposition you begin with is that joy is like the most pure, great emotion you could feel, and depression and sadness is the opposite of that. That's why you see Amy Poehler and Phyllis Smith so much in the trailer, Sadness. She's one of those actresses that you've heard before, but you just can't place them. She played Phyllis on The Office. Without getting too heavy into the story, the film does do a good job of explaining the relationship between these two seemingly polar opposite emotions. The real weirdness of the film comes from some of the really big things that it's missing, and I actually think that's a good thing. I should say, weirdness and that it's good weird. Typically, most stories involve an antagonist and a protagonist. This film is not like that, so it might seem a little bit weird in that there's no big villain to defeat. A really good contrast for this is Avengers Age of Ultron. They did sequences where you go inside the Avengers' minds, and they have to deal with these really strange pseudo-memories. It's very weird and unexpected in a movie where you expect a lot of punching and kicking. And even though that's not really what Pixar films are about, that there is a lot of punching and kicking going on inside the Toy Story films. There is a villain inside Toy Story 3 trying to hurt the good toys. And that's not really how the narrative in Inside Out is constructed. And I think that's a really good thing. This is the kind of film that you might end up watching inside a high school psychology class or an intro college class. A lot of it's very whimsical, but a lot of the ideas are solid, the way that memories are stored, the way memories change. All in all, I'll give the movie a giant thumbs up. You don't need to see it in 3D or IMAX or anything like that. It totally works just in regular 2D. And a lot of my extra praise for the film goes in the fact that Pixar was willing to try something this weird. That should give you a lot of hope for the other big franchises at Disney, like Marvel and Star Wars. A lot of it is recycling franchises, but then every once in a while they slip in a film like this, something that's just so weird and different that it feels like it doesn't fit right away. Really where it starts to fit is when you think of Pixar films in the context of what it's like to be a child and grow up. That's really what those films are about. But just to get into spoilers, so I'm going to talk about a couple of my favorite moments in the film, so careful if you haven't seen the movie yet. Here we go. Far and away, my favorite part of the film was when they make it to Imagination Land and they run into Bing Bong. He's played by Richard Kind. He is the perfect voice of an imaginary friend. Just the right amount of crazy energy. Oh my god, he's a lunatic, but this seems like it might be fun. It also doesn't hurt that he cries candy. I don't think a lot of the emotional arc of the film would have worked without his sacrifice. He, in a way, is one of the smartest characters in the film because he comes to terms with his own existence in the way that Riley, the little girl, hasn't yet. To be fair, though, you don't really expect a little kid to figure that out when she hasn't even hit puberty yet. The puberty console was a nice end tag. Oh my god, I wonder what this big red button does. For the most part, the other emotions besides joy and sadness, they were fairly forgettable. Bill Hader, Louis Black, Mindy Kaling, they're all great actors, but they didn't really become interesting till that end tag too, where you started to see the blended emotions like fear and joy at the same time. Even though it's an overly simplistic way to view emotions, I thought it worked. The film just says emotions are extremely complex. You can feel a number of them in the same instance. Although if you really want to get scientific about it, there are a lot of biochemical processes associated with forming memories and learning and development that they just kind of left out. It's almost like the whole film is taking place inside the room of abstract thought, because it's presenting these emotions as distinct things in an abstract way. So I guess that's probably the best way to think about it. That's an even better way of describing the process by which I make videos. Like, I feel like I'm sitting inside a room of abstract thought. It feels completely weird until I turn around and I start editing the video. But here's my big question for you guys. What was your favorite part of the film, and do you want to see them try more weird ideas like this? That is to say, films that don't necessarily have a main villain to overcome, and resolutions that are kind of ambiguous, like, oh, life is going to be complicated and I'll deal with it. As opposed to, say, like a Marvel movie where it's like, I punch you, you're dead, I win, bam, movie over. For those of you asking like what Pixar movies are coming up next, so The Good Dinosaur is their next movie. That's coming this November. It's like the alternate history tale about like what happened if the Earth didn't get hit by a giant meteorite. Then there's Finding Dory. That's like the next Finding Nemo movie, part of that franchise. So expect a lot of those actors to come back. That's next year. Then Toy Story 4. So, a couple of franchise movies back to back. There is an Incredibles 2. I have yet to meet a person that did not like that film. It did a great job of deconstructing the superhero genre. I don't know how they're going to follow that up, so we'll see. My expectations typically get lowered for sequels. Really, I think what we're waiting for is a really badass Pixar-Marvel collaboration on an animated movie. They do have Big Hero 6, but that's really like a Disney animation Marvel collaboration, and that feels much more like a Disney film than it does like a Marvel film. The closest thing we have to that is the Incredibles franchise and Toy Story. They're both really good, but I feel like it'd be really awesome to see Marvel characters go through some sort of story arc like you see in those films. What does it mean to be a superhero? Like, we need an Inside Out for Tony Stark. That would be a nightmare. The whole movie would be that giant clown from the subconscious stomping around with a liquor bottle trying to chase you. So moving down the line, Ant-Man, Fantastic Four, a couple other big movies coming this summer, so I'll be doing videos for that. Be sure to subscribe to get them. If there's any other movies that you want me to do videos for, just let me know in the comments. But while you guys wait for that, you can click here for my Jurassic World review. Probably one of the better films of the summer. It is a lot of fun. Maybe not quite as good as Mad Max, but you can click here to learn all about some of the cast members that Game of Thrones Season 6 is looking for right now. Thank you so much for watching, everybody. Let's high five. I'll see you guys tonight.